Nations. Characteristics of nations include a territory with borders. So, where does the country end? Where does it begin? That's a characteristic. Another characteristic is that it has a government. If you don't know what that is, you must be new to my class. Sovereignty. Sovereignty is the freedom of a people to set their own rules and laws without another country intervening. What does that mean? So, America is a sovereign nation. No one else tells us what to do. And the Native Americans, they also have a sovereign nation, many sovereign nations. Those reservations are completely controlled by those Native Americans. That was granted to them by the American government to try to kind of pay them back for everything we had done to them, our country's done to them in the past. And they have so much power, similar to a completely foreign country, that they can actually tell federal agents, you can't cross, you can't come in here. That's because they have sovereignty, freedom to set their own rules and laws without anybody else having input. What's that word, nationalism? That's a pride in a shared history and a loyalty to your nation, which sounds like awesome, right? I mean, proud to be an American, proud to be a Canadian, proud to be a Mexican. This kind of concept didn't exist very much before the 20th century. It did a little bit in the upper classes and the wealthy elites. And even then, it was more like, well, we want our country to do well because we want to get rich from it. Not because they just loved this concept, their flags and stuff. That didn't mean that much to anybody who wasn't in the military or in the upper elites. The common people like you and me, we don't really think about that, like, proud to be an American, proud to be this country, that country. We didn't really think about that. That didn't really come until the 20th century, and it was used to get people to blindly follow their leaders. That's why I've got a picture here of a Nazi parade, because Nazis, National Socialists, are the kind of the genesis of major nationalism. Well, not so much the genesis, but where it really got ugly. The first time it really turned to a really dark place, because it can be used for good, but it can also be used for really terrible things. All right. The definition of real long-lasting power, true power, that means even if people hate you, you still have the power. That is those who control the factors of production, which is land, labor, and capital. If you control land, labor, and capital, then you have power that it's going to be very difficult to take away from you, because people are going to then start to depend on you for their own well-being. And that's what governments are set up to do. How to use these resources, these factors of production, how to manage them. We're going to have 3 different types of economic systems that we're going to look at, and how they control these factors. And eventually you're going to be seeing how these different economic systems will compete with each other and have wars with each other to build their land, labor, and capital. We've already seen one way, that's through colonies. That has nothing to do with economic systems. Most major countries of both of any kind of economic system are going to be, or used to be, trying to have colonies. But now that the age of colonialism is over, there's no more colonies anymore. Now how are these countries fighting? And what are they fighting for? So first, everything comes from traditional economic systems. Traditional economic system is everything's decided by custom. They're not really worried about getting the most profit or making sure things are like as equal as possible, though that might kind of happen. It's just they make decisions for their economy and how those 3 factors of production get used in the based on how things have always been done. We don't change. We don't have new ways. This is the way it's always been done. This is the way we always will be doing it. But most modern societies, at least the ones that are developed and strong countries and world players, they're either a market or a command economy. A market economy, also known as capitalism and the free market, factors of production are owned by private individuals. In a pure market economy, the government has no role. in economy. So meet their economic needs, they would remove it from the government and put it squarely in the hands of private individuals, meaning business owners, you, me, us. We would have full control over everything when it comes to land, labor, and capital. And we would just figure it out amongst ourselves, compete amongst ourselves, and the government stays out of it. Then there's a command economy in which we have no say and the government makes all the decisions on how land, labor, and capital gets used, how it's organized, how it's managed. The government completely controls it. Now, the reality is that most countries are a mix. Americans will definitely consider themselves a market economy. China, they'll consider themselves a command economy, but really they both have elements of both. A pure form of either one does not work. If you don't have government regulation at all, people are going to take advantage of each other. Some people are going to be luckier than others, and they're going to use that luck to keep others down, to keep them up. The government needs to come in to some extent and make sure the playing field is the opportunities are as equal as possible. Now, that doesn't mean you eliminate poverty. You try to reduce it, but you try to make sure that there's not that one group of the population isn't too more powerful over the rest, and that everyone's needs are being met to a reasonable degree. And in China is not full command economy. There are individual business owners that make money and individual business owners that don't, and the government just lets them do what they do. But not as much as you have in America. So these two countries are in constant conflict and have been for decades now because of their different economies and different cultures, but most are seeking profit, gain the most what you can for the lowest cost. And this goal is not just limited to what you can do with the land, labor, and capital in your own country. As you might have figured out, why countries are making colonies in the past. The reason why? Profit. Why countries are going to try to dominate others? Profit. Both sides are trying to get profit, market and command. They just do it with different levels of government control.